Welcome and hello ladies and gentlemen, Donspektor here, today with another IEM review, and I have for you today the Fearless, and it doesn't say the packaging I think, but it's the Provence. So today I'll be looking at this €140 entry level IEM from Fearless and will tell you what it can, what it can't, and what you can expect here. So yeah, first general stuff out of the way, it's like roughly $140 and it's a 1DD to BA set. And yeah, after I've heard of the S8 and I really considered getting it, just haven't gotten around to it yet, just because the graph does not look like something that will hit my nerves, especially according to the price it has. But well, when the Provence came out, it didn't have any graph and I was like, you know, maybe it goes in this direction, and for this price, maybe this is worth a shot. So I got it, and now it's here, and I managed to take a good long listening with it, and yes, let's get started. First, of course, packaging and accessories. And as you can already see here, this is a pretty nice packaging. Matte black, and it has actually some, yeah, I want to say unique design language going on. Even their slogan here at the back, which, yeah, I mean, if you're into that, but I like this design. And yeah, when we move the outer packaging, which hopefully we'll be able to achieve now, yep, we come to inner packaging, and you can see this, ladies and gentlemen, is thick as cardboard, and even is closed neatly by a magnet, which you can probably hear. And then we open it, and here would already be the IEM inside, which I already took out, and the carrying case. So first, let's take a look at the carrying case. Yep. As you can see, that's pretty white, artificial livery, and actually it's not bad made. It has some sturdiness going on, but my main problem with it is the magnet is not really strong. So if you just flop it in your bag with the IEM inside, it could open maybe, and the other problem, it's white. See the bag? This is how it arrived here. I've never used it. I've never removed it from the packaging, and still you can see the dirt here. So I think they would have been better off with a gray case, like a light gray case or whatever. And yeah, additionally, packaging accessories. I think this could be described as cleaning cloth. Not sure if it is just decorative. It's, I don't know. So, and yes, the next thing you get is the tips and a brush. And yeah, you can see you get like 3 sizings of tips, S, M, and L, plus the brush here. And yes, the brush is like a cleaning brush like any other, nothing fancy here. And the tips, unfortunately, also not that great. So they are relatively soft and thin enough, but they are not mega comfortable. And yeah, one thing I can at least say positively here, you can see the opening. It's really big, and I like this kind of tips more than the smaller bore size. And yeah, generally the size variation here is pretty nice. So S is definitely my way to go. S fits me well. M too big. L don't even have to try. So yeah, we have a second pair of M tips inside here. So yeah, generally this is okay as accessories go. Packaging, however, yeah, you can see the whole, like how this is made up and how fancy it is looking. It is, I want to say, a bit of a shame that we pay so much for packaging for an IEM at this price point, because all of this could be spent in better engineering, could be spent in more drivers. At least like one more BA at this price point would be possible if we reduce that a bit. And yeah, this is overall, it was really nice. Like if you open this and you feel like you have a product that has like value, this is like really well made. And so far the like accessories itself are not bad. I just think at this price point, maybe you would be better off in spending less for packaging and more for actual engineering. But yeah, I mean, this presentation here is great, so there's nothing to complain regards to presentation and also protective casing. It's thick cardboard, nice safe foam here, carrying case that does the job. Maybe a few more pair of tips would have been nice, but yeah, overall, packaging accessories totally fine. Like maybe reduce it a bit for sake of engineering and environment, but okay. And then, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the star of the show, which is the IEM. So let's unplug the bad boy and talk about IEM Build. Yep, out of the picture with you, cable. You are not important yet. So yes, this is our bad boy, and you can see it already sparkling here. So I'm not a fan of style over substance IEMs, right? And this one definitely has style, and this design is really nice. Yeah, now the light of my camera here is on, but you can see like this is sparkly, and on a level of sparkly, I would say even me, as somebody who's not into fancy looking IEMs, this is looking nice. And the combination of this like blue and black combined with the Fearless logo inside definitely has style, I got to admit that. And if you then flip it around here, this clear acrylic, or like this, it just looks nice. And even they went out of the inside and designed the inside, right? Look at this dynamic, not coating, but protective casing. And yeah, also the tube in here is also colored. So yeah, this is really a nicely designed IEM, because even the insides are designed to look great. And yeah, that also somehow translates into build quality. There's no seam around this IEM whatsoever. Everything is smooth. It's feeling really organic to the hand. And yeah, if you look inside here, you can even see how the drivers are glued inside. They're directly inside the, not the acrylic, the resin. Like everything is done so neatly and nicely. So yeah, this is just an overall greatly built, like really well built IEM if you just look at it from any angle. This is, as I said, it's built to look good, but at the same time also they had to think about it and engineer it in a way that like is well made. Even the 2-pin connector here, as you can see, it is integrated so nicely. I'm not sure if it is glued inside, if it is directly placed in the resin, I have no clue. It's like really well integrated. And yeah, same is also true for the nozzle, as you can see here. It's also directly poured in the resin, and yeah, you can see there's a thin layer of resin directly here where my fingernail is. So everything in this IEM is like really well built. Also the grill inside here, as you can see, it is placed really precisely, glued in with good precision, and really, it's a really well built IEM. Like there's no denying that. This IEM is really well built. And yeah, when we talk about the IEM, right? Yep, let's get the second bad boy in here. So you can see it's actually, identical. Let's talk about the cable, and the great first impression with the IEM's build quality also translates to the cable. For $140, this is what I call chunky cable. And chunky, I mean here in a good sense, because this cable is thick. It is, let me just try to crumple it up a bit. It's smooth. Like really, this is a nice smooth cable, and if you weight this thing alone, this is really chunky. I'm not sure how many grams, but I would estimate like maybe 50 grams or something, 30. It's really, this is chunky. So if you don't like your cable to be chunky and heavy, I don't think this is for you, but I like it. Like I cannot deny, right? This is a cable that feels nice in the hand, and if you have this plug, also it's triangular design with the Fearless like pattern, like laser etched into it. This is oozing quality. Like really, this is a cable I would expect at like an €300 or dollar IEM maybe, but this is really nice at this price point, at least for me. And yeah, this is nice, grippable. You can plug it in and pull it out easily. Strain release, like it should be at least twice as long to release strain probably, but it's okay. And then we go further up here and you see this like silver coated cable. It's like 8 cores, it's thick, it's smooth. And then we go further up, we come to the splitter, which follows the same kind of brushed metal style. It is a bit, like the corners here are a bit sharp, I got to say. But it just matches the aesthetics and it's definitely well built. And when we go further up, chin splitter, and then it splits here into 4 wires of the same thickness, which I do like. I like if the cable is already fancy, right? I like it to have consistency and use the same cables here as here. And also, it matches the aesthetics again. And my complaint here would be though the chin slider is really difficult to move. It definitely, like again, styling wise, this is definitely really well like stylized, i.e. Cable in quotes. But just this is difficult to slide, and I'm kind of afraid I will break the cable if I use it day to day, so that might be a bit of a bummer. And I've also heard people complaining that the cable of the S8 kind of changing color over time, getting greenish, but hasn't happened to mine, and I own this since like almost 2 months maybe. So yeah, mine still looks totally fine, but as I said, some people when I read complained about the cable changing color, so yeah, be cautious about that. Then we go further up and come to the ear hooks here. This is an relatively like big loop here, and the rubberization is not too heavily done, so I assume it will fit most people's ears. And then it terminates into this transparent plastic 2-pin connector, which is for the recessed style you can see here. So if you want to have a replacement cable because you don't like chunky cables like this one, you need a cable for recessed 2 pins. I think the one from Moondrop could fit because they're usually also pretty slim and have a really thin connector like this one here. Maybe, but be worried if you want to have replacement cable you need for recessed 2 pin. And I think this finger cable, I really like this chunky cable. It just feels nice to the hand. It feels more valuable than it probably is. But this is a really good cable for the price point. So then let's come to comfort. And as I already said in my last video, I will be throwing on measurements of the IEM, which means like in terms of like length and then width and also thickness and nozzle length and stuff like that, so you can better see how well an IEM will fit your ear. So how comfortable is the Treble Provence? The answer is yes. Yes, it's very comfortable. It's one of the most comfortable IEMs, in fact, I have worn in a long time, which is probably due to its semi-custom shape, which you can see in the pictures, which I will be hopefully now throwing on, and also at the relatively like short nozzle combined with a not too thick diameter. And with not too thick, I mean, the nozzle is roughly 6 millimeters, but this is only the lip and the front. And after that, it already gets quite a bit thinner, which is roughly 4.5 millimeters, which again makes tips fit the IEM really nicely because they just stay on really secure. But it also makes the IEM kind of like the nozzle feel thinner to your ear than it actually is at the most thick part. So this results with the semi-custom shape in an IEM that I can really wear all day without any problems. Like it's mega comfortable. And I want to have now I want to see like how other Fearless IEMs are. If they have the same kind of shell or the same kind of general contours and nozzle thickness, I think this might be a great candidate for just an all day wearing IEM. And I mean, again, angle of insertion is like a bit often, I want to say individual topic, but here the 130 degrees definitely has been chosen nicely, and it just really fits my ear very nicely. So comfort is great with this IEM, but keep in mind, right, if you are knowing that you need an other angle or the sizing might not work for you, you might consider something else. But for me, it just works great, and comfort really perfect. And then next chapter, let's come to isolation. And I got to say, on paper, the Provence comes in at minus 26 decibels passive isolation. So on paper, it isolates pretty solid. In real life though, there's no though, it isolates great. It is not the best isolating IEM I've had, obviously, but combined with the right tip, it isolates really good, and we are at quite a bit above average level of isolation, even with silicone tips. Throwing on foam makes it, of course, even better. And it smoothens the treble a bit more, which I will not recommend when we talk about sound later on. But if you need a well-isolating, really comfortable IEM, this is definitely an IEM that you can keep an eye out for. And even as I said, with silicone, you have an above average isolation. So it is enough for, I think, most cases. Maybe only if you really go at main roads where really you have transport vehicles, you have cars everywhere, and maybe somebody's honking, I don't know. Then you really need the foam tip or maybe something that isolates even better. But I think it's totally fine for 99% of use cases. So really isolating is really good at this IEM. Which brings me to drivability. And the Provence comes in at 19 ohms at 116 decibels of sound pressure level. So on paper, it's really efficient. And in real life, it is also pretty efficient. Plugging it in my S9 Plus, which is filming this review here, gives me most of the detail this IEM can do. And yeah, I think you need to up the volume a bit to get the detail that this thing can actually have. So really not an low volume detail set. But it's no problem in terms of drivability. You get most of the separation, most of the details that the Provence can actually have. And upping your game with something like the BTR5, yeah, it maybe adds a bit more to the sound. I think Soundstage and separation get improved, but it's not a big step up. And if you go for more power like the SP200 in the end, I think you also don't get more out of it. Like really is no real use in upgrading your power here. So speaking numbers, I would say you get like 90% of what the Provence is capable of on any power source. So take your cheap USB-C dongle, take your smartphone, take your laptop. I think it doesn't really matter. You will get most of what the Fearless Provence is capable of. And that already brings me to the sound section. So how does the Provence sound? So I will be throwing on my graph again because yes, I am graphing with an IEC 711 coupler combined with the Apple USB-C dongle. And I'm using RAW for measurement. And yeah, if you want to know more, I'll be linking my video explaining how I do my measurements. And yeah, general sound characteristics here is kind of L-shaped, I want to say. This means you have quite a bit more bass when you have everything else, and it sounds dark. Like there is a kinda soft pinna gain here. Like it's not terrible, but this is really a more L-shaped IEM in terms how it sounds to the ear. Even though it looks more V-shaped on the graph, it just sounds like an L shape, and it has a soft treble, so it's good for long listening. But yeah, like this is general sound characteristics. I don't think I can say more about it without already going into details. And that brings me to details, or like general, we start with treble. So kicking things off with, treble extension. It's okay, like for the price, like maybe you could expect a bit better, but it's not that great. And yeah, I mean, a bit going further down from there, as I really like how Critical pronounced it, couldn't. Yeah, no, this IEM is not I want to say, a good player at treble response. Overall, it feels soft, it lacks clarity, it lacks I want to say like in panache that other IEMs have. And even weirder, it has a peak at like between 8, more like 9-ish K, something like that. It also goes in the 8K region. So it's one of those weird cases where the IEM sounds dark, and sometimes it sounds also a bit harsh. It's really weird, and I can't really recommend you anything in treble regions here. I mean, yeah, for I think some cases it will be fine. You will not be complaining about treble, but overall this sounds too dark. Especially if you have more complex tracks, like for the album Escape from with Bird's Eye View, which is kind of fusion jazz album with, I would say, more complex instruments and also, complex, I would say like just general like lines of notes in the treble region, just doesn't come through here. It just lacks detail, it lacks panache, it lacks not only fun, it lacks air. Like really, treble isn't good here. And even if you go outside of that, like tracks like Surrender from Dance with the Dead, Multivitamin Juice Part 1 and 2 from Ovane, it lacks the air, it lacks the feeling of like you have a nice complete treble. It's just not here. And let me say, this is not a complete deal breaker. Even with the 9K or like 8 to 9K peak combined like with everything, it's not a deal breaker, right? This is still not terribly bad in treble, but just is not my kind of thing. The 8 to 9K peak, it can occasionally be too much. For example, in the album After Dark from Essenger, there are quite a few vocals that just, are kind of a bit sharpish with a bit of like an S and F tone to it. This is definitely not fun with the set. And even with some tracks that don't have S and F, like well pronounced, sometimes it happens that it sounds a bit off. For example, here I noted Nightcrawler's Bass Ferratu. At about 3 minutes, there is kind of a rattling sound. Usually, with most IEMs, this is pretty much in line and it just works well with the overall treble representation. Here, though, it just came out as too much pronounced, not being like really an organic part of the mix. So keep that in mind if you talk about like, mid and upper treble. Going further down, it's a bit soft. It just lacks the panache I want to have of more IEMs. So really doesn't have too much sparkle going on. Like E-guitars lack a bit of bite. Cymbals don't really sound detailed. And synth notes generally have a more soft tone to them. Funnily though, even the graph indicating this has more energy than, for example, PMV, it just doesn't sound like that. Really, this is a really soft treble to me, and really, even some of my favorite tracks, like Somewhere I Belong from Linkin Park, where I usually do not complain about guitars and the energy there, Provence just doesn't manage to convey the energy. It lacks the fun I want to have. Also, another example I noted is Black Knight from Warrior Path, which is kind of a more melancholic metal ballade? I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Or Fade to Black from Metallica. It's really difficult to find anything that the treble is good here. It's not catastrophically bad, but it's too soft in everything you throw at it. And same story continues at lower treble, which I sum up with the mids now. Because yes, upper mids are also not great. Female vocals are a bit on the soft side. They are a bit laid back. They have an, I want to say, okayish presence, but it's really not that great. And especially for my library, which has more orchestra stuff or more like female vocal stuff, where really Nier Automata soundtrack comes to mind here. Weight of the World, for instance, it just lacks a pronunciation. It just is too far pushed back in the mix. And again, it's not bad, but combining again with the 8 to 9K peak, it's ain't good. Like really, this is not a great balanced set for the upper frequencies, even the upper mids here. Which then brings me to the mid-mids, and well, these are okay. When I actually looked at the graph, I thought, might not be the case, but no, mids are totally fine. So I think I would call them kind of thick with 2C, but they're not bad. So they don't get lost as much in the mix as I first thought they would be. And people would say the bass bleeds in the mids, and I kind of agree with you here. But honestly, this I want to say like slope until the sub bass, it works fine for me without feeling too bleedy. And I mean, yes, again, this is my personal preference here, but generally some vocal, or like most vocals in the mids, they're totally fine. They are not great because they don't sound natural, but they are not really that much pushed back in the mix. For example, Catharsis from Nightcrawler, which can actually happen because this is more like dark synth, but the vocals get pushed back really pushed back much too far. Didn't happen here. They had a decent presence here, not the most natural tonality, but a decent presence without being pushed back too much. On the other hand, again, we stay at Nightcrawler, Vanished, also from Nightcrawler. Well, somehow vocals here sounded thin and not really lively. So really it depends on like your library and what really the kind of song you're using. But I think in most cases, what the mids will be here, you will give them an okay. They are not great, they're not terrible, but you can totally live with them. A few other examples, Scandroid's Shout DJ Stranger remix, totally okay. And Rainmaker from Iron Maiden was even good. So again, overall mix wasn't there, cymbals were just too soft, as was guitar, but just the vocals in Rainmaker, totally fine, like really, I would call them good there. Which brings me to the lower mids, And yeah, as the graph indicate, the slope continues all the way to sub bass. And yeah, what this means, lower mids are pronounced over the mid mids, which can be fun if you have like low pitched vocals or bass guitars, which yeah, I will combine now with upper bass as well. So yes, I like lower mids with bass guitars with this IEM. I did notice again, after the rain from with Bird's Eye View, for instance, worked nicely here. The bass guitar really had a nice note weight to them. They were pronounced nicely again, really thick, but I would say it worked pretty decently. And yeah, they are over-pronounced compared to the mids and the treble, but overall, I think this worked nicely here. And if you like yourself and I want to say like good pronounced bass guitar, this can be a thing for you. Again, if you don't like your bass to bleed into the mids, well, it's not unsaid for you again, but it's not terrible. Like I've heard the Sony stuff just bleeds so much worse in the mids and really doesn't sound as natural. But because this one actually continues like sloping up until the sub bass, I think you are fine here. It doesn't sound as bad as the graph might make it look like. And yeah, that brings me to mid bass, and I have to say, unfortunately, this one lacks a bit of kick. I think it would have been wise to just give it 1 or 2 decibels more, or maybe slope down the sub bass a tiny bit. Because yes, while I'm not a like big mid bass fan, I think it just does lack a bit of punch here. And yeah, I mean, again, the kind of tuning they went for here, it's sub bass over mid bass, so you will never feel like really this is a punchy IEM. But let me just say again, this doesn't have punch, so if you like mid bass punch, well, this is not unsaid for you as well. Which brings me, fortunately now, to sub bass. And oh boy, this IEM, it has rumble. Yeah, the slope until almost 20 Hertz, like really continuing rising and rising and rising, really makes this IEM like really it rumbles in the sub bass region. Really, the note weight here is just, it's really good. And if you have a bass line that can actually live with it, for example, if you listen to a dark synth, which I from time to time do, the rumbly sub bass line here really very nicely pronounced. Even if you more go into, I want to say like a more like tame like synthwave, for example, Cat Temper's Code Racer, it has this like weird bass note that is in the, I would say mid bass to sub bass, but the rumble it has, really enjoyed. And also Nocturne from Nightcrawler, again, also nicely pronounced rumble and sub bass notes just sounded great with a great note weight. And Taste of Midnight from Replicant as well. The like sub bass presence this IEM has, if your song pronounces this bass line, it just works so nicely. And that combined with an overall audible and technical extension, which reaches in Interstellar's mountains to like 1 minute 15.5, like I want to say even 1 minute 16 with decent texture. Well, okay, with real texture you only get until like 2 minutes 14 or 15. But honestly, if you talk about an IEM that has sub bass where you really want sub bass, this is definitely delivering it. And if you like your IEM to be like mostly delivering sub bass, I think you can be really happy with how this IEM pronounces sub bass. And I think, yeah, that brings me to the next chapter, which is soundstage, layering, and imaging. And I think I can keep this chapter pretty short. Ain't great. Yeah, soundstage is more on the small side. Means it's not tiny yet, but it's definitely more smallish. And yeah, this combined with a layering that is not good, especially for the price point. Really, you only get 3 blobs. Like, I even tried to listen for some other songs that usually have a far left and far right layer. Doesn't happen here. It's like, it's 3 blobs and nothing more. And yeah, also imaging, it kind of is just like a cognested, like it's all stuffed together. It's difficult to tell notes apart in the room. And even for gaming, like honestly, you can probably get used to it, but I would not recommend this for imaging. So yeah, summing up, it's definitely in terms of soundstage layering imaging below 100, and these technicalities just really not good. And it brings me to separation, dynamics, and coherence. Because yes, if you're talking about an hybrid IEM, we have to talk in some cases about coherence, and this is one of these cases. So while coherence here not being bad, which means the kind of balance between the BAs at the back here, you can even see them, and the dynamic here is not terrible. So I want to say it's appropriate for the price. It also isn't great. And in most other cases, the BAs here will overplay or like overshadow the dynamic, mostly because you need more energy to bring both to life, or like the dynamic to life. Here it's the exact opposite. The dynamic overshadows the BAs, and you need to up the volume to even have a like reasonable balance for the treble. If you just listen at low volume, really this is just like the coherence is only bass, like you only get the dynamic and the BAs just totally lag behind. And yeah, even if you up the volume, there's still some incoherence. So I want to say the overall timbre of this one is definitely more on the wooden side. Especially because the DD is just overpowering the BAs, right? But it is price appropriate. It's not terrible. It's not like the TK-ZK Wave. Even at its price, the coherence was terrible. But this one is just, it's price appropriate at like 140. Just want to say overall timbre, because of the overpowering DD, will be pretty wooden. And again, then that brings me to separation isn't good. Like, it is not terrible, but even at this price point, I've heard IEMs that just manage to, deliver more complex tracks in a better separated way. And I think this might be again due to its tuning, which again, it's mostly bass-based. But really, if you want to have an IEM that separates instruments and different note lines, this IEM will not manage that. And again, last chapter, I think, before we come to a verdict, is dynamics. And while dynamics are not great with this IEM, it is pretty much on par with what I would expect with most IEMs at this like 100 to 150 euro price point. So there is a good difference between what kind of lowest note and highest note this can play at the same time, but it will be pretty different in distinguishing different like quiet notes from each other, even if they should be a bit different at loudness level. Will not happen as much. And again, I think the main problem here is that the DDs overplaying the BAs, because that again mostly means that you will just lose detail because the BAs are not strong enough to live their own life compared with the dynamic. So it's to sum up, separation, dynamics, and coherence isn't great, but isn't bad. So it's like price appropriate, I would say. And it brings me to the verdict. So, Fearless Provence is beautifully built, very well made, with a great chunky cable, and it's definitively with the way how like it has this like nice sparkle to it, which is not like it is really, I want to say, like unique, but still has an like a kind of an not in classy, almost a classy look to it. So definitely this is an, I want to say, eye-catcher IEM. If you wear this somewhere and people will be looking for what kind of audio gear you're having, this will like catch the eye of people. And it is also really comfortable. So this combined with the isolation it has, I think this is a good all-day wearing IEM because it's really soft in the treble. It has a good bass to it. My main problem is just it has no balance. So I know some people like L-shaped IEMs, the other Shure EJ07 or 09, the original ones, not the 07M. They kind of go in the same direction, right? They are definitely having a soft treble with a good bass, but this one just, I think it just misses the balance there. It has so much bass. I think it's at like 15 decibels or something. It increases from the mid, like it's really an absurd amount of gain you get for the bass, and it just overplays most of the treble, and it just makes the balance just totally out of whack. And yes, if you listen to synthwave, I think the Provence can work for you, especially if you are more into like dark synth or tracks that actually have just a good bass presence or good sub bass presence. But for most other like varied libraries, this is just not going to work appropriately. And adding to that, there is one of my favorite bass IEMs. Wait, let me just get it. So yes, I got the IEM. So one of my favorite bass IEMs is not the Provence. Similarly priced, similar in contours, the ISN Audio D10. This is just a 1DD set, and I think in pure terms of how it delivers bass, this I would prefer it all day of the week over the Provence, because this thing, it almost sounds like a subwoofer on your ears. This is like a bass that does like the whoop whoop, right? So you will definitely feel this has more weight to it than this one. And combined with the more V-shape here, you actually even get some, I want to say, treble details that are lost here. And if you see the general like shape of these two, right? So they're also similar in shape there. And the nozzle on the Provence just works for me just a tad better than on the D10. You can see D10 nozzle is just a bit longer. But generally this is also a pretty comfy IEM. And if you want yourself a nice present sub bass and like really good energy there, I would prefer the D10 all of the week over the Provence. And the cable of the D10 was not as nice, and also general package and accessories pretty minimalistic. But if you want sub bass or like a really like strong sub bass and bass, go for D10 over Provence. Like Provence might look better, it might be better cable, but overall D10 is just more enjoyable, more balanced IEM. So yes, and with this, I want to say, hope you enjoyed it. If you have questions, if you have feedback, if you have critique, if you still have other improvement suggestions, please leave a comment. And with this, Donspektor out.